Okay. I'd like to welcome everybody to the City of St. Helena regular City Council meeting, Tuesday, January 14th, 2020. I would like to ask our Chief of Police, Hartley, if he would step up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Don't go far, Mr. Hartley, please. We're gonna first do our public forum. I'm sorry. We're gonna move up the presentations and public recommendations and the oath of office for Chief Hartley before our other items. So if you would step forward, please, and then our city clerk. Oh, I'm sorry. We'll have the roll call first. Yes.
Mayor Ellsworth.
Here.
Vice Mayor Doring.
Here.
Councilmember Koberstein.
Here.
Knutson.
Here.
Stowe.
Here.
Okay, and with that, our city clerk, Cindy Jafopoulos, will administer the oath of office to Chief Hartley.
Get your best side.
If you could please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Christopher John Hartley,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to support and defend
to support and defend
the Constitution of the United
the
States,
Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of California,
the Constitution of the State of California,
against all enemies,
against all enemy,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will
that I will
bear true faith
bear true faith
and allegiance
and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and to the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservations
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will
and that I will
well and faithfully
well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I'm about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter.
And now I'd like to call up Miss Jackie Rubin.
Thank you, Jackie. Oh boy, it's real. I tried to keep this short, and it looks long, but I need the big print these days. First off, I'd like to say thank you to City Manager Mark Prestwich, Mayor Ellsworth, and City Council members for your continued faith, support, and confidence in my abilities to lead our department and to provide the best service possible for the community. I'd also like to thank retired Chief Bert Johansson, who couldn't make it tonight, for taking a chance and hiring this old career Marine vet 21 years ago. I'd like to thank retired St. Helena Police Department Chief Jackie Rubin, who just pinned on my badge, who inspired, mentored, and prepared me for this position. My good friends and colleagues, former St. Helena PD Chief and current Hercules Chief of Police, William and Bowden, Chief Mitch Celaya from Calistoga, Chief Oscar Ortiz from American Canyon PD, the Napa County Undersheriff John Crawford, and Napa County Sheriff Captain Colin Dodd, and Lieutenant Swift, they've all provided overwhelming support, guidance, and most of all, friendship over the years. I want to thank members of the St. Helena Police Department who have and continue to give me 100% and are the reasons I am here today. Most importantly, I'd like to thank my wife, Micheli, who supported me through the ups and downs of both my Marine and police careers. She's always had faith in my abilities and supported my decisions, even when they were crazy ones. She has had my back even when I didn't know it. She's my driving force and makes sure that I always come home to a safe and happy place. Thank you to my children who always keep me on my toes and fill my free time with family adventures. Lastly, thank you to all of my family and friends that could be here. I wouldn't be here without you. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all.
So it's wonderful to see such a great turnout of support, and thank you, Chief Hartley, and thank you to the entire St. Helena police force and everybody for turning out and showing their support. So with this item, well, we're going to take a small break and let everybody sort of find a way to the next part of the celebration, and then we'll sort of regroup here. So thank you very much, and it's much appreciated. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We'll just take 5 right there. Nice. Yeah, it's like, yeah, don't worry, get into some. See those kids up there just ready to explode. Let's see if I can get shifting right there. How are you doing? Thank you.
This is the meeting you were talking about, right?
Oh.
There was one.
Yeah.
There was one at 3 o'clock, but I
Yeah.
saw it was canceled.
So
I left you a message on Monday.
I saw it. I got back to it today, and I think we got our wires crossed a little bit. So this is just a general city council meeting on the fire safety. So we did that this morning, but we'll do it again in a couple of weeks. But let me reconnect with you in the next day or two. We'll figure out how to make it.
Okay.
I think it's very important.
You have my number and everything
Yeah,
on
got
your
it.
message?
Yeah.
Okay, you can email me.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you very
Great.
much.
Thank you. Good to see
Good
you.
seeing you here.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sure you've already seen just about Calistoga's. It was on the web that I brought out.
Oh, okay.
I'm just ran it off. I was going to talk or something, but anyway.
If you want to say it at open forum, you can. We'll have open forum in 2 minutes. That'd be great. You get 4 minutes. I mean, or we can do it at a different time.
I went to the next
Okay,
meeting.
and I'll let
Be
you
more
know. I'll
relevant.
call you.
Are you going to talk, or at least say that why it's here?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Good thinking.
I guess we should have done that at the beginning, but
Yeah, I'll jump in with it as we do the.
folks at home.
Yeah. Let's see. Should we close that door? We got it. Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay, I'm going to reconvene the meeting here, and we're going to move into public forum. This is where members of the audience, public, are entitled to speak on matters of municipal concern that are not on the agenda. Each person's comments shall be limited to 4 minutes, and brief questions by council members for clarifications may be posed and answered, and council members may make requests that items be placed on future agendas. But in accordance with state law, no substantive discussion or action may take place unless and until the matter properly appears on the agenda. Is there any public comment at this point? Seeing none, I will move now to reports by staff and city council, future agenda items, and AB 1234 reports. And before I begin with that, I would like to welcome Maya DeRosa, who is our new planning director in St. Helena. And as we go through our reports, I'll check in with you.
Welcome.
So I will start with our city attorney.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Ellsworth. Before this meeting, the City Council held a special meeting. It was a closed session, and there's no reportable action out of that closed session.
And our city manager, Mr. Prestwich.
Just in regards to the City Council special meeting that was held, I'm sorry. The date of the special meeting. Monday the 6th. On the meeting of the 6th, there was the council designated 2 council members, Councilmember Koberstein and Vice Mayor Doring, to work with staff in speaking with Napa Valley College about a possible lease.
And our finance director?
Thank you, Mayor Ellsworth. I just want to do another reminder that we are officially transitioning to bi-monthly billing for all utility billing customers. The last day to sign up for the level pay plan is tomorrow, so please contact our office. The numbers are located on the website, or you can come visit us at our new home at 1572 Railroad Avenue. In addition, just a reminder to residents that you will be receiving a partial bill for the month of June, or for the month of January, and then the next full bill will be in March. So just a reminder.
Thank you. Our city clerk? Our public works director?
Yes, thank you. MVTA, Napa Valley Transportation Authority, requested that we let the community know that the countywide transportation plan open house is this Thursday at the Carnegie Building between 4:30 and 6:30. They're welcoming input on all the projects that are planned countywide.
And that's at the Carnegie Building on Thursday, 4:30 to 6:30?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
And our planning director, Ms. DeRosa?
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm very excited to be the planning and building director for the city of St. Helena. Thank you again to Mark for his confidence in me. And there's a lot of exciting things happening in the city. And Mark shared with me your 3-year goals, so I'm in the process of prioritizing those in our department. And I'm looking forward to working with all of you on a lot of great initiatives and just a lot of things happening. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Chateau?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Knudsen? No? Ms. Koberstein? Mr. Doring?
No, thank you.
Okay. Well, I have something I'm going to read. It'll take 5 minutes or so. Just sort of a quick rundown of what we accomplished last year and what we hope to move forward with this year, being our first regular city council meeting of the year. So I found a few quotes to get us started. Albert Einstein once said, "Logic will get you from A to B, imagination will take you everywhere." Steve Jobs, the co-founder of Apple, said, "Innovation distinguishes between a leader and a follower." So last year was eventful, with flooding at City Hall earlier in the year. In the fall, we had fires and PG&E power shutoffs that affected the whole town. In December, we moved staff out of the old City Hall to interim spaces after a smoke event. While challenging, these events also brought city staff, the council, and our community closer together. Working together under stress can either break a team apart or make it stronger. In our case, I believe it has made us stronger. Getting to know each other, getting to know how we all work best together, particularly under stress. And we should all take pride in that. Our community, our staff, and our council for really good, serious work this year in challenging situations in addressing our overall city goals. So along with challenges, there were good things too. The new general plan was passed. We brought in a new city attorney firm who have helped bring down legal costs considerably. We've made innovations in police, fire, and public works while supporting the incredible work these departments do. The community grew stronger on fire and emergency preparedness. And with every fire, whether it be local or on the global stage, we are reminded that we need to do more and take more steps in our resiliency and preparedness. So one thing we can all do is link into the city website and email blasts to keep informed about how we can all keep participating in preparedness. A lot of progress happening here is not easy to see on the surface, but critical, such as updating generators at our water and wastewater plants, a big step in protecting our city functions during emergencies. We had neighborhood table this year, and that is being planned again last year and is being planned again for this year. That was over 500 happy people sharing an evening in downtown St. Helena. Jingle All the Way and downtown holiday lights were amazing. We had another fantastic year of bocce and other community and school sports and events. Reminders of all that we have to be thankful for in living here. The city has remained engaged on downtown strategies, upcoming sidewalk and streetscape renovations. We worked on parks, the skate park. Measure T funds tripled our paving budget to fix roads. We made steps forward on York Creek Dam and upgrading the wastewater plant, as you'll hear on tonight's agenda. We're not past the finish line on all of these projects, but we have movement forward on most fronts, and that is something to celebrate. For updates on how we are strengthening our city financial systems, there's an excellent recent article in the St. Helena Star, St. Helena's 2019 year in review by City Manager Mark Prestwich that I recommend reading. Working together, I believe 2020 can be an incredible year here. I want to keep pushing forward on housing and traffic safety, walking and bike paths, keeping this a safe place for pedestrians, bicyclists, and people of all ages. I'd like to see good communication within the community regarding water security and multicultural efforts, while keeping strong on maintaining a vibrant commercial core, downtown core, and continued commitment to maintaining streets, parks, and public infrastructure. Of course, we must now always look at problems through the environmental and climate lens. On climate, we need to promise the youth a future that they deserve, and they deserve that. As a city, we recently adopted MCE's Deep Green 100% renewable energy program, and we're looking for new innovative approaches to addressing climate change, water issues, and protecting our precious resources. Continuing dialogue with Napa County administration and our other Napa County municipalities will be important, as many of our issues and opportunities exist cross-jurisdictionally. And as a matter of fact, reach all the way down into the Bay Area. We are one of 9 Bay Area counties, and so our dialogue with the entire San Francisco Bay Area, I believe, is important. Through community organizing, we are coalescing many engaged citizens and organizations that bring fresh perspectives and solutions to our community. Recognizing problems is important, but engaging in solutions is what strengthens and unites a community. And there are many opportunities for volunteering and participating. Check out local service clubs and nonprofits, and as a community, find a way to get involved. Doing this together is how we're going to get where we want to go. I want to empower everyone to be their best self, to treat each other as we would have them treat us. to listen to each other and respect each other, even if we don't always agree. And I always want to remember gratitude for the many wonderful things and neighbors we have. Finally, I want to mention the ceremonial flagpole we instituted at City Hall next to the main flagpole where we fly the American flag. This year, the ceremonial flagpole hosted the Pride flag, the Italian flag, the Mexican flag, and the POW MIA flag. Hopefully, there will be many more that go up there. Ceremonies were performed and related events took place. What a way to bring everyone together in the center of our community to demonstrate that we are united in our diversity. I believe good leadership celebrates diversity and new thinking while respecting tradition and established practice. And I believe it is in this balance that there is space for innovation, whether it resides in government or private sector. There's always opportunity to make things better, more efficient, and better serving. I'll finish with a quote that says, "The pessimist complains about the wind, the optimist expects it to change, the leaders adjust the sails to catch the wind." So let's roll up our sleeves, adjust the sails, and catch the wind. Thank you. So, with that, we will move on now to our staff briefing, and this will be Ms. Smithies from our Public Works Department on 7.1, the update on the wastewater treatment plant.
I want to table this item because we have a big update and under old business under item 10.3.
Okay, and then we'll move to 7.2.
7.2, we have a similar update, but that's regarding the contract, but another progress we've made. But today we started the tree removal at the Upper York Creek Dam, which is huge steps that'll help us accomplish the construction this summer earlier than August. And it went well today. I found out also Britain Services did the vegetation removal back in 2006. So we have the right team up there, and we have the right consultant team and environmental biologists monitoring the situation. I also want to say Fish and Wildlife and U.S. Fish and Wildlife came together on us and got us permits in nick of time in the short time frame that they promised that they would deliver. So it was great advancement on this project so far, and I'll curtail the rest of it until we get to the old business.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So I'm going to move now to the consent calendar. I'm looking at item 8.1 as being pulled and not heard this evening. So I will read through, and if anybody wants to pull an item, they may mention it. 8.2 and 8.3. Seeing nothing, I will ask for a motion on these items.
I'll move approval of the consent
I second.
calendar.
Vice Mayor Doring?
Yes.
Councilor Chateau?
Yes.
Knudsen?
Aye.
Coberstein?
Yes.
Mayor Ellsworth?
Yes. Okay, well, seeing nothing in public hearings, we will move to 10, old business. 10.1 is being pulled and not heard. 10.2, and if anybody showed up for this item, 10.1, did anybody show up for 10.1? No, okay. So that's being pulled. 10.2, consideration and proposed resolution authorizing the city manager to execute work order number 3 in the amount of $581,900 for design, project management, and permitting services, and $664,654 for construction management services, for a total work order amount of $1,246,554 to the Master Professional Services Agreement with EKI Environment and Water Incorporated, STH contract, fiscal year 2020-024 for the Upper York Creek Habitat Restoration Project, CIP Project number W-26 for a total not to exceed amount of $1.543.297. And this is Ms. Smithies.
Yes, thank you, and thanks for the introduction. I'd like to introduce Jen Hyman with EKI to my left here at the podium. She'll be providing a presentation on where we've come to date and where we're going this year with this project. It will be completed. We brought them on this summer to assist with the direction of our prior consultant, Michael Baker International. When we failed to deliver the phase 1 project this fall, it was time to transition from Michael Baker. And with the short time turnaround with the project where we were going, we needed to keep someone solvent that understood the project, was able to wrap their head around it in such a short amount of time, because it is complicated. EKI and their subconsultant WRA were, it seems like, the right fit for this project. And with where we are today, starting construction with tree removal, we are heading in the right direction. With that, I don't want to take the thunder away from Jen Hyman, but I want her to explain the contract presentation and where we are today.
Good evening, City Council. I'm Jen Hyman. I'm the project manager for this project. I'm also the director of engineering for EKI, Environment and Water. I'm a registered civil engineer in California with over 27 years experience managing civil engineering and restoration projects. Have a very short presentation to give you a little bit of overview of where things are on the project and where we're headed. Upper York Creek, where this project is set, is a very special place. We have a number of reports documenting the threatened and endangered species there so that we protect them. Some Native American artifacts are known to have been discovered along the creek in our project area. Those areas will be marked off and avoided. The dam itself has a storied history in the legends of St. Helena as providing the initial water sources for the first wineries that were here in the city. It's over 100 years old and is actually a historic facility that the history of the dam will be documented and recorded in the city archives for people to access whenever they need to learn about that history. But however, we are going to be removing the dam, removing the sediments that have backed up behind it, so that for many years it has not functioned as a reservoir. It is about 50 feet high and 140 feet long at the top, although you'd never really notice it driving by it on Spring Mountain Road. It's already covered with very mature redwood trees and a forest there, but it is a barrier to fish passage and has been negatively impacting the function of the creek for longer than our lifetimes, over 100 years. So the project goals are to restore ecological connectivity between upstream and downstream habitats along York Creek. This picture shows the alignment of York Creek through the mountains and hills as it travels down and reaches the city and goes through the city limits, where it has been really constrained into a very straight channel for a while as it goes through the city and through vineyards before it reaches the Napa River. The lower York Creek Reservoir, that is an active reservoir owned by the city, is just downstream of it. So in removing the dam and a large percentage of the sediments that have backed up behind the dam, it'll restore the natural sediment transport in the creek, which benefits the endangered steelhead in it and restores the natural function of the creek. One of the aspects of this project is that Spring Mountain Road, which follows the creek up into the hills, gets very close to the creek at the dam, and so we're making sure to maintain the stability of the dam when we take it out. And one of the aspects of the restoration we've been able to negotiate with the agencies is, instead of importing lots of plants to the creek area after the dam's removed, we will allow it to revegetate naturally over 5 to 10 year period and monitor to make sure that that's happening. So this is a preliminary drawing of our design for the dam and sediment removal portions of the project. I know it's pretty hard to read at this distance, but the dam is the
the larger area at the southern part of this drawing, and this is actually shows the alignment of the creek after the dam and the sediment will be removed. This photograph shows the trees growing in the sediment right now. So it's very sandy material that's been building up over years. We have been negotiating with a local vineyard to take that valuable sediment that has lots of minerals in it. It's clean sand that will help them with their vineyard. We may also, if the negotiations with them get too complicated, take it to the Clover Flat landfill. The material that comprises the dam will also be going to the landfill. It does have some naturally occurring asbestos in it in a couple of hot spots, and so the vineyard didn't want to take it. So the one thing to know about the dam and sediment removal is that it's basically a very huge dirt hauling project. That is the main aspect of it. There could possibly be 40 to 50 truck trips a day for about 3 months going to the landfill and on Spring Mountain Road to the vineyard. One of the things that we're still trying to determine is which is the most economical for the city to bring it to the landfill or the vineyard. But we're definitely, that is really the bulk of the project. Another part of the project besides removing the dam and the sediment is to construct artificial log structures, which are intended to mimic the natural debris accumulation of logs and sticks that happen in a normally functioning creek that are essential to steelhead habitat. So a big part of the project are the installation of about 36 log structures. To the extent possible, we are just going to use logs that are harvested from on-site that will have to be taken down as a matter of course for taking down the dam and the sediment. So we're really recycling the materials from this the site as much as possible on-site to minimize the cost of hauling things off-site and keep things as natural as possible. The steelhead will only lay their eggs in these gravel bars that are formed by these log structures. It'll be exciting to see how, as the project is finished at the end of this year, we will be doing long-term monitoring and tracking the restoration of steelhead in the creek, and so we'll have more to report on that in the future. The project schedule right now is we are this month submitting the 60% plans and the permit package to the 5 different environmental permit agencies who will be granting permits for this project. Right now, we have out to bid on your website a request for to pre-qualify contractors. Those are due next week, and we will be developing a short list of pre-qualified contractors that will reduce the risks of having an incompetent contractor on the project. We will hopefully also next month finalize the access agreement with the vineyard for disposing of the sediment. We will solicit bids in March and April from the short list of qualified contractors, and doing that early will ensure that we get the most bids and the best bids from the contractors on our list. Towards the end of the spring, April, May, we anticipate receiving the permits, and immediately after that, issuing a notice to proceed and initiating demolition construction for the project. Long-term, post-construction, the environmental agencies do require that long-term monitoring happen to make sure that the restoration goals are being met on the project. Also, the monitoring will make sure that downstream there aren't any issues that happen with the restoration of the natural transport of sediment and debris in the creek. That will start up again. And we will be doing outreach with people, property owners along the creek, to educate them on these changes later this spring. Yes, that's my last slide. Let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any?
I wanted to add on, so we didn't discuss in the slideshow was the budget. And so it's broken out in two phases. I know that the one number is a large number. We spent a lot of money to date on design, but the way the contract is written, to finalize the design and fast pace, they've been brought to speed. We had the initial $300,000 contract with them to get them through construction and overseeing the project management of Michael Baker. But when they transitioned, we revised their work order with the current contract amount. But then with moving forward with them fully, we needed to revise the contract further, which is what we're bringing forward to you tonight, and to complete the final design and the permitting on a fast track such as we are to date. We're looking at additional I'm sorry, I just scrolled down on this, the additional $581,900 to complete the design, the permitting processes, get us to the construction, and then the additional $664,654 is for the actual construction management services. They can't touch that money until we're actually in construction. I know there was concern because Michael Baker continued to bill us. This is separate phase 1, phase 2 of this project. It's full construction management services, inspection on site daily. We have biological monitoring. There's a lot to go through this project. So I know it's a big ticket, but it's what we're needing to get this project delivered this year.
Are there any initial questions, comments from
Just to
council?
clarify, Michael, we're no longer working with Michael Baker International now?
No, and there was approximately $96,000 remaining on their last amendment, so that funding is ours. It's not been spent.
Thank you.
Mr. Knudsen?
Yeah, I have a question. So is this plan fundamentally the same as the Michael Baker plan, or is it fundamentally different?
It's similar in many ways because we didn't want to reinvent the wheel at this late hour of the project and to keep everything on schedule. It is improved in that we are going to be taking out more sediment than Michael Baker had originally envisioned, and that reduces some of the risk of flooding.
And yeah, because my impression was simply that there was going to be more sediment actually left in the stream to naturally, over time, either stay where it is or drift down or something like that, which explained the sediment traps. Are there sediment traps involved in the current plan?
Yes, those are the same thing as the log structures.
Oh, the log structures are the same as the sediment traps. Okay. And then I have a question just from an environmental perspective is streams and rivers, they change and work over time. Is there any benefit to simply letting the log structures themselves happen naturally over a 10 to 15-year period versus building them?
Because the log structures do also serve immediately to help capture some sediment that's released, it does offer a little bit of sediment retention to help with the concern of sediment depositing downstream and adding to flooding immediately after the project's over. So the advantage of putting in the artificial log structures right away is that not all of the sediment gets washed down, and then the habitat starts getting restored more quickly.
And in your considered opinion, given the channelization of the river, the unnatural channelization that's occurred by human efforts over the years, both along the immediate road, which is immediately adjacent to the upper stretches, and clearly down on the floodplain, there's been a lot of... does that mean that we have a bigger challenge with potential flooding with the removal of this dam in the future, given the channelization, or are we, once we make this change and we've put in the sediment traps, can we assure our residents and those that live downstream that, guess what, we haven't increased the risk to them?
The sediment the first year, there is a concern, the first year or two during heavy storms, there is a concern that if the timing ends up being a certain way, that sediment would drop out in those flat areas, and we'll be doing some very close monitoring immediately after the project to and arrange ahead of time if debris and extra sediment needs to be taken out in the lower parts. It is hard to, but then after that, sediment should naturally be moving through to the Napa River. However, there is currently a big problem with the carrying capacity of the lower reach of York Creek, and there has been a lot of flooding even before this project's going to happen. So there are current problems with flooding as well.
Interesting. I think I have just one more question. Is besides the lower reaches, which are largely through vineyards, my understanding is that the flooding problem naturally was sort of behind the bridges because they're not engineered to sort of handle the natural debris that would come down, and that therefore there can be buildup of debris and therefore flooding at those particular locations. Is that the concern, or are there other flooding locations as well that I don't understand?
The bridges, a number of the bridges do appear to be undersized, and as such, they end up constraining the creek in not just the sides, but the top as well. So the bridges, there will have to be increased maintenance and monitoring of the bridges.
Okay. And then sort of a final question, in your professional opinion, I mean, can we have a healthy creek?
Oh, absolutely. It's York Creek watershed upstream of the dam has very little development, and the survey by the fisheries experts is that there's a 1.5 miles of spawning habitat upstream of the dam, and that York Creek will play an important role in the restoration of steelhead with this project.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions, Mr. Doran, Ms. Clipson?
Thank you. In your project understanding statement, your firm makes a statement. It should be noted that anticipating the actual level of effort to complete all of the tasks required for this complex project over the upcoming year is difficult. I'm wondering how much of your budget is attributed to that kind of unknown. Can you quantify that in your budget? I think your budget's high, and I'm worried about your budget, frankly, and I'm wondering if there's a fair amount of your budget that's built into we don't know, and so we're gonna accommodate that unknown risk.
It's hard for me to quantify how much of our budget is associated with the unknowns, and we did see from working with Michael Baker that there was a hazard in underestimating what the cost would be on this project. And some of the unknowns on this project have to do with the permitting agencies. Although we are working very, very closely with them and know them on a first-name basis now, we've been going over in detail our design so that they shouldn't have any surprises for us. They still could. And the other entity that is still has some unknowns with it as well is our project collaboration with the vineyard. And so our contract is set up for us to bill on a time and materials basis, not to exceed those numbers in there. So certainly, if it ends up being less, that's what we would be charging.
Okay. Explain to me the need. It says in your statement, in your report, it is assumed that the city will contract with a resident engineer who will be in charge of daily inspections, weekly meetings, review invoices, and contractors' general conformance with the plans and specifications. Yet there's another statement that says that your firm would be overseeing, essentially, maybe that's a strong word, but overseeing the resident engineer. Why have sort of that double whammy on the city? Why can't we just have one professional that's there day to day and monitoring and making sure that the city's protected? I don't understand your business as well as you do, so maybe the question's not correct, but I'm just asking and wondering.
So there actually will be a number of different people out in the field during construction. The construction manager is somebody who will be responsible for the overall administration of the contract provisions, and they will be working as a subcontractor to EKI. So we will just be over time making sure that their job is they're carrying out their duties appropriately. So we won't also have somebody else in the field. Okay. There also will be a biological monitor who will be out there, not quite full-time, probably about half-time, but still a large portion of the project to make sure that as the project progresses and the contractor's working in habitats where certain endangered species could come along, that they won't be encountered, or also any archaeological materials will be identified during construction. So the construction monitoring, then there'll also be occasionally a geotechnical engineer to inspect certain aspects of the project that are geotechnical. One of the things I would like to try to do and those are a big cost of our proposal, is the field monitoring. So the quicker the project can get constructed, the less monitoring that will happen. So I'm looking at some options for maybe trying to do some of the hauling at night or after hours to try to speed up the project. So that's some things that we're looking at. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you. And Ms. Smithies, can you go to attachment 9 and walk us through that budget, the overall budget for this project? Because it's very difficult for me to see the starting point and where we are now and do a comparison. It looks like we're substantially over budget from what we projected, but it's hard to make a comparison because I don't know what we're comparing the numbers. I think it's attachment 9 if I'm not mistaken.
I can cover that one since I was the one who updated the CIP project list for Erica.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem. So when City Council,
it's
the very last page.
Last page, that's what I thought. Yeah, thank you.
So when we took to City Council the CIP operations budget for approval back in, I believe it was May, the total budget project cost from this point forward was estimated to be the $5.4 million. And if you look at the top section under fiscal impact, it says the estimated cost for the project is $8 million with actual cost to date of $2.6 million. So the $2.6 million that is in this CIP sheet in front of you is what was projected to be spent as of June 30th, 2019, because we had to do this about a month ahead of time. And so what we did in the development of updating the CIP project list for the update to the EKI contract, we shifted some of the construction contract costs up to the design cost, as well as took some from construction contract and moved up to construction management, because at this point, without getting bids in, we actually do not know what the construction costs are going to be. So instead of coming back with an additional amendment to the CIP to increase the overall construction budget costs, what we did is we shifted the costs within the current project, and then once we got the actual construction bids, we can make adjustments at that time.
And if I may,
what was the preliminary estimated cost? Maybe you said that, but wasn't it under $6 million? The overall, the first time we estimated what this project was going to cost was, and then the second question is, the premise was that this new way of handling this was going to reduce that cost, and I'm not seeing a reduction in cost. I'm seeing a substantial escalation in cost. I know part of that is a Michael Baker International issue, which I'm not real happy about either. But anyway, I'm expressing some frustration. But we're substantially over budget when we compare to the original budget, correct?
Right, we were being told to be $100,000 to $200,000 for phase 1 and $1.8 for phase 2. But originally it was like $4.5 million for construction that we initially came before we got Michael Baker on board. And we looked at the budget numbers. We were able to provide, asked the county flood control district. They did the Rutherford Dust project, a recent one. I think it was a couple of years ago. And the budget varied from 2.8 to 4.5, the bids. And it was similar amount of sediment removal that they were trucking down from the Napa River. So instead of just guesstimating and throwing another sticker number out there, we want to wait to see if we get bids until we even try to modify this budget further on construction. I think that's being conservative. I think our water fund's a lot more, we're doing okay there, but I want to make sure that we don't do that again. Let's not change the construction contract amount until we get those bids in from those contractors.
Thank you.
I think we're all looking forward to the completion of this project. My questions relate to what happens afterwards. We're talking about this 10-year monitoring program, adaptive management plan. Is that something, is it going to be costly? Is that something you'll be bringing forward to us in the CIP? Or do we share those costs with the other agencies that are partnering with us? What happens there?
So that'll be part of the conditions of, we'll get conditions, and usually it's the Regional Water Quality Control Board that provides the conditions on the monitoring requirements. We propose to them what we're just going to say, and they'll tell us if they concur or revise it slightly. California Fish and Wildlife will also have some conditions. They usually overlap. We can contract with someone like Napa County Resources Conservation District. They do monitoring and or other qualified monitoring. We have the current Waterways is doing the flood control project. That was a 10-year, and whether you negotiate, whether you do the first 5 years of annual monitoring, they can go every other year after that, depending on how well the project's after post-construction's monitoring. And that cost can vary, and we won't know until those conditions are presented, so we can get cost proposals from those consultants.
Thank you.
I'm going to open it up to public comment, and then we'll bring it back to the council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom Belt, 1520 Hillview. I think all of you know I've been interested in this project for some time, primarily because it's been so expensive and it's costing the water customers this money because it's been decided by the City Council that this is a water enterprise expenditure. And although we've come up with $1.8 million, I believe, to supplement it, it's still very expensive. To start out with, I'd like to first of all compliment our city staff. On Friday, I was looking at this the staff report that Erica put together, and I was curious as to the amount of money she stated were the expenses for the project, the past date expenses. I submitted a public records request, and I got that information today. So I had to rewrite some of my information, but I'm going to go ahead and just try and read what I put together. I want to say thank you for getting this thing done so far. I mean, this has been a 26-year project. The original cost to do this project was $1.5 million, according to City, in 2001. And I think we're looking at well over $10 million now. But I don't know where the water funds, I mean, we're hoping our water rates are going to go down, but I'm afraid that if this happens, we're going to see increased water rates. Tonight's staff report increases the estimate to remove York Creek Dam by over $1.5 million. The new estimate is for $8,030,074. This increase comes as a surprise because our Public Works Director for the last 2 years has been optimistic that the cost may come in lower than the previous $6.5 million that the project was estimated at. As a resident and one of St. Helena's water customers, this makes me feel insecure about what the final cost will end up being. Once the dam is notched, the sediment traps are in place, and the 10-year environmental monitoring of the project is complete. Number two, I would be interested to learn how much of the current $8 million estimate has been spent on past consultants, expired environmental impact reports, the interest paid on a 7-year $3.2 million bond, and the fines St. Helena water customers have paid for the city management's inability to remove the dam after 26 years. I know roughly we paid $70,000 in 2006, and we've been paying $70 a day since, I believe, October 2012. Of the additional $1,543,297 being proposed for this approval this evening, the staff report reads that $664,654 will be used for construction management services. My question is, do construction management services include the actual cost to employ all the contractors to physically notch the dam, construct the sediment traps, and monitor the environmental observation of this over 10 years? So that's a question I have. The staff report reads that the actual cost to date to remove the dam have been $2,606,074. Yet, based upon a revision from the city I received today, that figure is now $3,185,310. It went up about $500,000. However, the city's computerized financial records only go back to 2009. And according to the records I received from my public records request in 2017, I've got about another minute.
Well, we've got to keep it to the time.
Okay.
Okay, if you want to continue. But please, just, yeah.
I'm just leaving it at this.
Okay, I mean, we have the submission.
The city has already spent over $5 million to date on this project. Okay? And if you want to know why, I'll be happy to tell you.
Okay.
But we've already spent over $5 million.
Okay, thank you. And we appreciate the submission.
I'd like to have that information also, Mr. Belt.
Is there additional public comment?
The additional cost part. Thank you.
Okay. No additional public comment? Okay, so we'll bring it back to the council. Is there any discussion? So my feeling, the concern with the cost, yes, but we appear to be on a trajectory to accomplish this after many years. So I believe, in my opinion, moving forward is imperative. I do also have concerns on the 10-year maintenance after the effort, and so would want to get a little bit more information about how that lays out in terms of responsibility and how we can ensure that it will be sort of systematically applied and we don't lose track of it. So with that, if there's no additional comment or yes.
In terms of guidance, I think hauling at night I don't think the community would be excited about that at all. So I would, for direction to staff, at least from my perspective, maybe the wider council would discuss that. This town is filled with construction vehicles during the day, and at night is the only time the town is actually quiet. There's the tourists, there's the traffic, there's the this, and so hauling, I know 40 or 50, I mean, that's a lot of trucks. That's one every 6 minutes or something. I mean, it's a crazy, or every 10 minutes, that's a crazy number. I'd explore also, it sounds like you've got one vineyard that may be interested. There's a ton of vineyards around our city and in our city. I'd expand who we might be talking to. I'm concerned about a potential flooding in the first year, and I don't want to have our city residents that are along, or any residents that are along the creek to be insecure about that. And I just wonder what our mitigating what we can do to mitigate that. A 10% risk, a 5%, that's too high. I mean, we've got to figure out that for the first, for that first year, if that's the highest risk factor. And then finally, I'm also just concerned, and I think it needs a little bit more attention, is about the lower level channelization and the fact that if the steelhead can't get to the upper because the lower, I think it's worthwhile I'd like a professional assessment about how fish can swim up that straight, ridiculously channelized, that's what was done in the past. And then just to Mr. Beltz, who's a fantastic member of our community and has really followed this project closely. There was some question about whether we could include him in certain meetings. I certainly would like that. And I also just think, part of our ability to go forward is that we have an honest reckoning with the past. And so I would hope that we can have a breakdown of the costs that have been spent so far, so that we can just understand, and that our water customers and the city residents can understand what we've done. And it's not about assigning blame, it's just about understanding the past so that we don't do it again. That's it.
Thank you. Yes.
I have a couple comments. A lot of questions in Tom Belt's piece here, and I would just request the staff to respond to them once you've seen all the questions, and you can maybe answer some of his questions about the expenses. Second, as Tom Belt himself has pointed out, and other people, the cost of this project has gone up tremendously due to the city's delay in getting it done. I think over the past few years, the city has been working very diligently to get this project completed, but nonetheless, on the basis of the delay, I was one of the council members who supported transferring some money from the general fund to pay part of this cost, as opposed to putting it on the water customers. And when we get done, or we do new rates, or we look at the budget again, I would like to revisit that issue. I don't think we can help what has happened to the cost, but I think that if it's not equitable, this is not a project that is providing potable water to the city. It's not a real piece of our water infrastructure, and I'd like to look at that. Just lastly, Councilman Knudsen, I understand. I'm not going to say I understand. I don't think it's appropriate for city residents to participate in meetings between staff and consultants. I think that there is a place for public input, and I think that is not necessarily it. And I understand Tom's deep concern about this project and his interest in it, but I honestly don't feel that we should be inviting residents now or in the future to actually sit in on these meetings. I think it's counterproductive to the city working with outside agencies and actually getting the project done.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments?
No, I just wanted to say that it's not just the city with the delays. It was these outside agencies, and just have that be in the public conversation as well.
Okay. So I'm going to bring it back, and the staff recommendation is consideration of proposed resolution. And so I'll be looking for a motion if there is.
I move that we approve the resolution authorizing the city manager to execute work order number 3 as the staff recommendation is.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Chateau?
Yes.
Hoberstein?
Yes.
Knudsen?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Doring?
Yes.
Mayor Ellsworth?
Yes. Thank you for the continued work on this. We'll move on now to 10.3. This is receive presentation on the City of St. Helena wastewater treatment plant, Phase 1 upgrade conceptual design. And thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you for coming, being here. So this is 10.3, receive presentation on the City of St. Helena wastewater treatment plant Phase 1 upgrade conceptual design report and the recommended tertiary membrane bioreactor project draft plan of finance and provide direction comments to staff. And again, this is Ms. Smithies.
Yes, I want to thank you for the introduction of this one as well. It's exciting times for the city. We're moving 2 large projects forward this year. I have Curtis Lamb with Hydroscience, who is the engineer for Hydroscience and this project. He's here to present a couple of slides that are in the packet that explain the proposed project upgrades, and then also discuss the budget. And then, thanks to Director Mitz, we have a budget financial plan that we're going to discuss tonight as well. So appreciate the job. I'll let Curtis take from here.
Hello, I'm Curtis Lamb with Hydroscience Engineers, and I'm the engineer of record for the conceptual design report and for the wastewater project for St. Helena. We're going a little old school tonight with the overhead projector technology. Regardless of whether or not we have slides or not, the intent of this project is that the City of St. Helena has been subject to a cease and desist order that was issued by the Regional Water Quality Control Board for the wastewater treatment plant. The existing treatment plant is not able to comply with all of the new discharge regulations that were included in the NPDES permit. The current wastewater treatment plant receives wastewater from the City of St. Helena, discharges it seasonally to the Napa River, and also discharges it to land adjacent to the wastewater treatment plant. We took a look at all the data. We took a look at all the different options to upgrade the treatment capacity or to upgrade the treatment quality at the plant. And we evaluated 3 different treatment options for consideration to upgrade the existing pond system to something that would meet the BOD, TSS, and other discharge requirements associated at the wastewater treatment plant. Our recommendation was to utilize a package MBR system. So essentially, this membrane bioreactor system, or MBR, essentially provides primary, secondary, and tertiary treatment all in one unit process. How we integrate that process into the plant is we take advantage of the ponds that are currently there to provide what's called equalization or reliability. Sewage is going to flow into the wastewater treatment plant. It's going to be pumped from the existing pump station through a bar screen and then into the ponds 1A and 1B, which are the first ponds that receive flow from the pump station. Then we're going to basically take thank you, Erica. We're going to take wastewater from those ponds, and then we're going to pump it through the membrane bioreactor treatment process. That membrane bioreactor treatment process will basically provide primary, secondary, and tertiary treatment. Then we're going to pump what's called the permeate, or the product from this treatment plant, through a UV disinfection system. And then that effluent, which has already been treated and disinfected, would then go around the ponds and to the existing outfall for discharge to the Napa River seasonally. During times, the wastewater treatment plant? Yeah, the wastewater treatment plant would be located near the existing entrance to the treatment plant. There's currently a relative boneyard of items, for lack of a better word, currently in that location. The area is graded and it's relatively flat and well suited for something like a treatment plant. And the rationale for locating the treatment plant there is because it's currently underutilized land that's flat, graded, and could easily house a treatment plant such as this. And we didn't want to completely abandon the ponds that are there now. The ponds can provide a lot of value, and it's really a resource that is pretty unique in the wastewater industry. There's not many entities that have many acres of ponds and many significant acre feet of storage. So essentially, your ponds are sort of that reliability and that comfort. So in case of wet weather, flow is just going to go to the ponds, and it's going to essentially be stored in the ponds. All wastewater is going to be basically gravity fed to a submersible lift station. It will be pumped out of the ponds through the membrane bioreactor treatment plant, and then either to your land disposal or to surface water for discharge. So the ponds are not going to be responsible for providing secondary or tertiary treatment of your wastewater. Your ponds are going to basically make sure that your wastewater treatment plant doesn't have to be oversized to serve wet weather flows that come in through your collection system. The ponds are basically there to equalize that flow, So when you get that sudden surge of flow coming into the plant, it will be stored in the ponds, and then as dry weather occurs, those ponds will be brought back down, and you'll be able to basically run all the wastewater through your plant and then either discharge it to your surface water or to land. Based on this report, we identified a cost estimate for the wastewater treatment plant. The overall estimated cost is about $12.5 million in 2019 dollars, which is when we drafted this document. The exact cost is $12,452,000 in change, which was our estimate. Our intent for this plan is to solicit what's called design-build proposals from engineer contractor teams to implement this project. Additionally, we are going to be coordinating with the regional board to state our intent moving forward, provided that we have some concurrence from the city, that this is our plan of attack going forward. And thirdly, we are going to be recruiting the assistance of an environmental documentation firm to make sure that we go through the CEQA documentation process for the project that is recommended for the wastewater treatment plant upgrade. And with that, I'd be happy to entertain any questions. I can go into a lot more detail about the wastewater treatment plant process if that's of interest, but just want to leave it there for now.
Yeah, we'll ask some questions here, and then we'll open it for public comment. Thank you very much for the presentation. Any initial comments?
Thank you for your report. I'm always learning something every day from you and our staff about this evolving project. One of the things I note, though, is that we tend to, want to list all the benefits of a path of action. And, for me as a decision maker, I always like to look at the other side of it. So what are we giving up? So I recognize the upsides. One question that came to my mind, and it was triggered by Councilmember Koberstein's comments on the last item we had about, that 10-year plan, to monitor our creek. So what I was thinking about is, what is there going to be a downside in terms of the additional maintenance that we will have to pay for with respect to the sludge that building up in these ponds that we would not otherwise use in another kind of a system?
The new wastewater treatment plant process will use more power than the existing process. You will need to replace the membranes every perhaps 7 to 10 years. The process itself, the wastewater treatment plant process, actually consumes a lot of the sludge that is produced. So there's a process called oxidation, which reduces the amount of sludge that is formed. So there's a couple downsides to the wastewater treatment plant, but the big upside is that your current wastewater treatment process can't meet your discharge requirements to discharge to the Napa River, and the proposed treatment process will be able to meet those requirements.
In the report, I note there's a recommendation, or at least a point of adding a course screen. What is that, and why is that important? Why should we be thinking about that, and is it included in our budget? Or
the course screen, essentially what is pumped from your primary pump station will go through a screen, and so you won't have rags or floatables or large objects in your wastewater treatment ponds. Currently, right now, that material flows through your process and into your pond, so you have some materials that accumulate on the sides of your ponds that's sort of an aesthetic nuisance and sort of a maintenance issue for your operator right now. And so the intent is that those will be screened out before flow goes into your ponds.
Okay. It's noted here and may be accommodated if sufficient funds are available. So I don't know if it's part of the plan or something to think about in the future. That's a question for Erica, I think. Is that part of the budget? The course screen?
It was included in the budget.
Okay. There's mention of an operations building and also domestic water supply. Are those luxuries or are those necessities?
These were identified prior to. They actually have a $3.2 million project for an operations structure upgrade in the future, but this would, talking with the prior utility operations manager and our current chief plant operator, it seems like there was always a trailer brought in. There was a study done by West Joseph, I believe in 2008, that stated there should be different accommodations because right now our city staff are right on top of the influent chamber. So it would be healthy. Nothing's ever happened, but they were just always concerned about what ifs and that they should be in a separate structure than the influent coming in. This, of course, would be different once this plat comes up. But this would be a way to get this done and completed, and staff's actually in a newer structure. The domestic water's always been, they're trucking in water right now because there isn't a good well out there on site due to the ponds. So we would be recommending that we bring in a new water line from the city water main on 29 down Shacks Lane with this project. That was already identified in the rate study.
Do you have a sense of whether the spray fields will be used even more or equal to the past or less than with this new project and new system? I mean, we have obviously complaints about the use of our spray field, and we've spent a lot of money investigating that, right? Including all the wells we had to drill. So I'm wondering what the impact of this sort of new venture will be on the use of spray fields.
It's still part of the project, but I'll let Curtis give you the whole.
Seasonally, the city is currently not allowed to discharge to the Napa River, so the only mechanism that you can discharge effluent from the wastewater treatment plant is to your spray field. So you're going to still have to use the spray fields for discharge of effluent that is generated by the plant. And I do not expect that the implementation of this project will change the amount of flow that goes to your spray fields.
Okay, thank you.
For me. Okay. Any thoughts, Mr. Knudsen?
I just have one question about the operations building, which, if I understand the fiscal impact, that project is sort of being eliminated. Do I understand? Years ago, we were carrying a fairly expensive capital improvement number, I believe, for a new operations and maintenance building out there. So you've obviously made the determination that we don't need quite that much, and we can function efficiently, and staff will have a decent place to work with something less expensive?
Yes. That answer is yes. We have our current corporation yard works out of the trailers. We thought that was an inexpensive fix, and it'd be elevated because it is in the floodplain area, and we've heard that it flooded in 2006, so they'd be elevated in the trailer situation. The shop functions well as it is, so I wasn't here in 2008, not sure where that study part came from, but I don't know if Curtis has anything to add on that, but I don't know if you've been out there. The structure looks adequate, and the operators that we currently have state it's adequate, and the past operator stated it was adequate.
Thank you.
Mr. Knudsen?
I really appreciate the institutional memory, both on this council and part of staff, so I really appreciate that. I want to be reminded of something, both for my benefit and hopefully for everyone else. Didn't we have a discussion last year about design build versus sort of a modular pre-designed plant? And there were some definite reasons that we went for design build, even though in my mind, design build is custom and it's more expensive, and sometimes prefab, there's sort of an approach that could be more reasonable. But I remember there were some specific thoughts about why we needed to go design build. And do you mind reviewing those?
Part of it was you do one procurement process. You have the designer, and they're also the contractor. So once they design it, you can already go to construction right away. We already have a concept plan that points out the equipment, a Coachina, which is manufactured in California, Central Coast. I believe it's a Rio Grande. Mm-hmm. And so we already have components identified. If that contractor or consultant can simplify the process, they can expedite it and get the construction rolling. And then if there's changes, then you're not stopping mid-grade. Just have the consultant tell you what you need to do. You have to get approval. You'll still get approval. We'll have a engineer or owner representative, which is what HydroScience has been acting at this point for us, and hopefully continues on that. But the idea is that it should be seamless as far as if there's any change orders or needs, that we have the designer that's doing it, making those. And they also cost efficiency. If there's a way to save funding, they can also identify that as well.
Yeah, so the critique is the design build, oftentimes it's over-designed, right? Because they know they're building it. And so I just wonder if sort of the expertise in the department and with other consultants can allow to make sure that that's the risk of design build in my mind. So do you feel like we're sort of set up institutionally to make sure that we're making the choices during the design process that limit this to what we need, not what they might want to build?
Yes, that's why we have Hydroscience to be that owner representative. I believe there's been multiple projects you've worked on in this fashion, and I'll let you take it from there. I believe,
And
I know there's a couple of local agencies.
And I think the other distinction that will probably be helpful to explain is that this is a packaged treatment plant, but there are connections that integrate from that packaged treatment plant that would be built and brought on site and built and connected to the existing system.
Okay. We've worked on a number of design build or design bid build type projects for implementation. The design build method of procurement basically helps to streamline procurement and construction of the project, and also provides a single source of responsibility. So if there's an issue with the project, the design build contractor, the designer, and the engineer are part of one team, and there's a sole source of responsibility for project delivery. For design bid build, you basically will have a full design process, and then you go and advertise the plans, and then you would hire a contractor, and then that process would start. It's a little bit of a longer process. In my experience, the design build process is a little bit of a shorter process. Overall, you may not get an over-engineered facility because they still have to come in with a guaranteed price for the project, and they don't necessarily want to include all the bells and whistles in that price, otherwise they may not win the project. But there's many different ways to implement a project. Design build was identified as a preferred way just to try to streamline project implementation and make sure that the city meets their schedule, their time schedule order for compliance with the regional board cease and desist order. And I also wanted to mention that we are planning to go through a multi-step process to solicit design build contractors. We want to pre-qualify contractors by issuing our request for qualifications. We shortlist to a certain number of qualified design build teams, and then we request a full proposal from those teams, sort of similar to the previous presentation, and having a two-step process for procurement. And the anticipated time schedule for getting a contractor on board, we identified 6 to 8 months in the staff report. That's sort of a reasonable amount of time. We could modify that slightly should our needs change.
Do you have a comment, Mr. Stowe? I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to open the public comment in just a moment, but while you're up there, first of all, I had been out there to visit, and I believe that having a separate place for the operations building is critical, that we can provide a better work environment for our staff. So I believe that's a critical aspect. There's a component that I remember had come up at some point about a wetlands approach to how the spray fields, or how the interaction, there may be a look at creating a wetlands to help process. That may not be part of what's happening right now, but what we choose to do now, will that still leave that open as an option in the future?
There are a couple of wastewater treatment plants that use wetlands up in the Humboldt County area. It's actually fairly well known as, one of the professors at Berkeley, he studied wetlands treatment, and he's from that area. Wetlands as a method for providing tertiary treatment is not necessarily a reliable method of treatment. The city of Davis used to use overland flow and wetlands for their treatment process. We designed a project for the city of American Canyon that uses wetlands as a method for them to do year-round discharge to the Napa River, but it doesn't actually provide treatment itself.
I see.
So the wetlands, if we wanted to employ wetlands on the spray fields or convert a portion of the spray fields to wetlands, it's a possibility, and the implementation of this project would not preclude that at all. But we don't want to necessarily include wetlands as a method for providing Regional Water Quality Control Board permit compliance.
Gotcha. Okay, I see the distinction. Thank you. So I'm going to, at this point, open up the public comment. We very much appreciate the report, and we'll open the public comment and see if any questions come up.
Hi, my name's Ron Rosenbrand. My wife and I are the owners of the property directly adjacent to where the tertiary membrane bioreactor is going to be constructed. And yeah, Erica has it up on the screen. You can see where our house site is, due west of exactly where that bioreactor is planning to be built. And the house is not more than about 100 feet away from that. And so we have some concerns, obviously. Our house was built in 1870, and my family's owned it since 1970. And one of the first concerns is, how much noise is this thing going to create? You know, is it going to be making a lot of noise all the time, or, you know, just something we'd like to know? Also, about 5 years ago, we had a water contamination problem with our well that the city dealt with beautifully and repaired the problem. But is this going to contribute to other potential problems for us with drinking water out of our well? And how tall is this thing going to be? You know, is it going to be a huge structure, or is it going to be something that's relatively low? Just concerns of ours.
Thank you.
Thank you. If also if there's something to submit, if you can submit something or send us an email just with your concerns too, just so those are
great. Yeah, happy to.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other? If let me. Why don't we see if there's any more public comment? We'll answer all the questions at once. So, is there any other public comment on this issue? Yes, please.
Rich Wallach, 60 Spring Street. Just a confession, I was the guy that brought up the design-build issue a while back. I'm not against that process. The concern is, when do you get a firm price and how firm is it? Because you're getting a price based on a preliminary design, not the detailed design. So the advantage of that is it's a faster schedule, but if I were in your situation, I'd want to look at the language of the contract to confirm that it's a firm bid and isn't a conceptual price.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Hi there, I'm Jackie Rosenbrand, Ron's wife, and he probably didn't cover all of the questions, so I just have a couple for you. On the map here, is our driveway. So his question's about the height and the placement and the noise, but also, is this the only site that's available for the structure? I want to be very respectful. I mean, that's obviously amazing plans, but I feel like we're coming in a little bit late here. Just want to know if this is a draft, if this is, you know, set in stone, if this is neighbor friendly, odors. It's quite close to the property line from what we can see from this schematic. So just want to add that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional comment? So I'll close public comment, and if you could come back up and we'll see if we can address some of these questions. First, I believe, looking at, are there alternatives on the site for placement of the plant, of the structure in a different area, and then how tall the structure is?
I expect that the structure will probably be between 15 and 20 feet in height. We assume that all of the structure would be constructed at grade, so we wouldn't be basically submerging or burying a portion of the structure. That was the concept plan that was originally generated. The noise issue, there's going to be some noise associated with pumping of the wastewater. To alleviate some of that, we could include decibel limitations at a certain distance away from the facility, and or enclose those pumps or any sort of loud equipment inside a sound attenuation structure. And so that's something that it can be accommodated as part of the scope of work for the design build or the contractor that's constructing the project. There's also a mention about the contamination of water at the property. I'm not familiar with the details of the project. I don't think that this project will result in any contamination of any adjacent groundwater wells. There will actually be less water in the ponds associated with this project. So if the ponds at this wastewater treatment plant resulted in percolation of materials into the groundwater, that should be lessened by this project, since you'll have less wastewater in those ponds as a result of this project. I'm trying to remember the other questions. So,
is there a way to look at placing the structure in a different area on either, a different side, or is there a way to look at something that finds an alternate site?
if we consider an alternate site, it may increase the cost of the project. We could move, if we wanted to keep it within that sort of paved area that's relatively flat near the entrance of the plant, we could move the plant further to the south. We put it in that location specifically because there's a metal building that staff indicated a preference to maintain. We could get rid of that metal building and instead move that plant a little bit further to the south. There are currently ponds on most of the acreage of the treatment plant. We could potentially fill in one of those ponds and put a plant there, but that would significantly increase costs and impact operations of the treatment plant. One of the ideas for locating the plant at this location is that you basically build the plant and tie it in at certain locations, and you don't impact the current operations of the wastewater treatment plant. As a secondary option, we could locate the plant in a different location. You may need to upgrade the primary pump station to be able to pump flow to wherever it needs to go.
To the pond.
And maybe this would help. Are the trees proposed to stay in place where they are those being removed?
It is not our plan to replace or remove the trees.
So it is important to note there are trees along the parcel line. I'm not sure the height of them. I know they are pretty dense, and that might be help.
I forget what the height is of the trees.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I'm also
Mr. Knudsen?
May I?
Yes.
I'm also looking at an aerial right now. It appears that there's sort of a line of buildings, and is that maybe my fellow council members are also looking as well? What are all those? Can we bring up? Yeah, and maybe you can point to what is what.
Let's see. So north is this direction, and so the plant entrance is right over here, and then you come in, and this is the primary pump station right here. The concept is that the wastewater treatment plant be located in this area right here. There are some old containers. I'm not sure what they're right.
That is the current fire station training yard.
What are these? What's here?
That is the neighboring property, I believe.
The parcel line is delineated by the trees.
The parcel line is right here.
Or are the trees on our property?
I think the trees are on our property.
Are they? Or the trees? Is the parcel line right over here? Yes. Oh, my mistake. I'm sorry.
So we're not voting on anything tonight. We're giving direction, is my understanding. Is there any interest or thought in terms of taking another look at where the treatment plant may go? Is there any interest in the council to looking at that to see if there's alternative?
I think we have to keep moving with the project. I'd be interested in this option you talked about enclosing the pumps to deal with the noise. I mean, I don't know if we are pumping more when it's raining, or I don't exactly get the whole engineering part of this, but to the extent we can keep it from disturbing the neighbors, I think it would be a good thing.
Okay. Mr. Oh, yes, if you'd like to come back up.
I just wanted to ask,
Could you come to the podium, please? Thank you.
I just wanted to ask, are the spray fields a possibility for this structure? It's on the other side of the treatment plant, and I can't imagine the cost would be that much more other than trying to get the results of what comes out of this to where it needs to go. But there's no neighbors around the spray fields. It's a very remote location, and I was just curious if that was a possibility.
What, Ms. Smithies, have there been any look at how that might situate?
It has not, but since your influent comes right there at the entrance of the driveway, I don't see how it wouldn't drive up your costs. If the goal is to bring the effluent straight into those chambers or the pond A where they are being treated now, and then you're moving the whole operation on the other side of the pond system, but without raising cost, I don't see how it wouldn't raise cost.
The only answer an answer might be just to shift that building to the eastern rather than the western section of that. Would that, I don't know.
We have a little bit of flexibility to move the plant east and not have the plant be on top of the influent sewer that comes into the plant.
And perhaps change the driveway am I seeing this right? Is this the entrance driveway?
Yes.
Correct.
To me, looking at options so that we keep this neighbor friendly as possible, I think it's worth exploring.
There's no decision that needs to be made on that at
Right,
this time.
okay.
We're still going to be developing an RFQ and an RFP.
Okay.
And we can adjust the scope of the RFP if we need to accommodate minor alterations in the plant configuration to incorporate sound attenuation or any other item that we choose to include.
Okay. Any thoughts from council? So we do feel you have the direction, Ms. Smithies, in terms of moving forward?
On the concept plan, do you need to discuss the financial plan, or?
So, Mr. Presswich or Ms. Mitz, we think we're looking at around 12.5.
That is correct. The project cost is just shy of $12.5 million. Of the $12.5 million, $250,000 is allocated for a new generator, which we did actually apply for a grant for. So we're very hopeful that we will be receiving that grant, so that will cut down on some of the costs. I have been working with Ken Deeker over the past week on just some preliminary plan of finance, as well as been in contact with USDA. And part of the plan of financing is also working with Curtis Lamb and with his group in securing USDA funding, which I am very excited. 40-year is at a 2.75 interest rate right now. So it is very low. It's one of the lowest that we're going to get. Because of that, we were able to, Ken's initial draft numbers is that would get us about $9.3 million in borrowing capacity, so it's up from about $1 million from what we initially thought. With that, with some cash on hand that we have in the CIP fund, as well as operation fund from the settlement, as well as from just net revenues and operations, it looks like we should be able to fund this project without any problems, as well as most of the other wastewater treatment plant projects. There was a discussion about Cronulla Pump Station potentially utilizing a general fund loan for that. That might not be necessary. It really depends on what the costs come in. Right now it is very, very close, and Ken worked really hard and looked at the numbers very, very well to make sure that we were also in compliance with our debt covenants and our council directed goals of 6 to 8 months cash, operating cash, as well as I can't remember what the percentage was, but we made sure all that was within the parameters. So it's at the current price tag, it is doable. That does also include the design work, and so we have the $12.5 million. In addition to that, we do have some construction management and design, and that also incorporates those costs within the plan of finance.
Are there any other questions on the financial aspects? Okay, so with that, the direction comments providing, I believe, is to move forward and to keep in mind as we sort of organize what we're doing, ways to perhaps make it as neighborly friendly as possible as we move forward. Does Mr. Presswich, does that feel?
Just want to make sure that we have council direction that's clear on moving forward with submittal of this for review.
Okay, we have. Okay, we've got
Thank
it.
you.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
And then please stay engaged, and we'll. Okay. Now we're going to move on to item 11.1. This is consideration and proposed approval of a resolution authorizing submittal of a grant application to the California Department of Housing and Community Development for up to $1,028,000 under the Home Investment Partnership Program project funds to advance construction of housing units at 963 Pope Street. And this is prepared by Mandy Kellogg and is Ms. Mitz.
I'm going to go ahead and introduce this one. Thank you, Mayor. So the city, as you saw on the consent calendar, has already authorized staff to move forward with the submittal of a home grant application. And the home grant program provides two different types of funding solutions. One is for project activities, the other is for program activities. And that earlier agenda item was a program activity. And the city staff was approached by Our Town St. Helena with a interest on their part of applying for a project to advance the housing project at 963 Pope Street, but on the project side of the home grant program. And so we talked to representatives of our town. We worked with our staff. We agreed that this would be, from an administration standpoint, it would be fairly straightforward. There are additional funds for administration of these types of grants that we would draw upon to assist us in delivering the project management associated with this. And there are some options in terms of how this grant gets submitted regarding the degree of affordability that can be applied to one of the units. And Erica Sklar from Our Town St. Helena is here tonight to talk to you a little bit more about our town's vision for this grant and how it would apply. And staff is comfortable in recommending advancing this.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So I just wanted to give you a real short summary of where we are with the project at 963 Pope Street in its development process, and then just a quick summary of the request. So as you recall, in September, we were able to purchase the property with the help of the city and the loan from the city as well as a loan from RCAC. Since that date, we have been able to rent up the existing house to a lovely family, a local family. We've also put together our development team, and we've started our conceptual design process. So we've met with the city planning staff at least once to solicit ideas and suggestions on the ideas that the architect has been coming up with. And we are hoping to submit our application to the planning department for our design review and discretionary use permit in February. So with that, what's come before us is that, as you know, with projects that are not large, pretty much any project that's smaller than 30 units, we don't have the opportunity of going after the funding sources that are the most common for affordable housing, and that is the tax credits. So, and those are non-competitive. But since we're doing a very small project, we are going after competitive funds. That's what we are going to have to do, and we're going to go for as many applications as we can qualify for. This one in particular comes about once a year, and so if we are to wait until next year in January, we're hoping to actually be under construction at that time, so or ready to start construction, and so it would not be good timing for us. So even though this is coming up very quickly, it's an opportunity that we feel like we shouldn't miss. And as a nonprofit, we are not eligible to apply, but the city is eligible to apply, and that is why we are here to request your assistance with this application. Let me see if I was going to tell you anything else. Yeah, I believe that's it. Do you have any questions?
Erica, will you speak to the affordability, degrees of affordability, and how the funding application might adjust based on degrees of affordability?
Right. So the way this funding source works is you're allowed to ask for a specific amount of money per unit. that you're constructing. But, and then they have their requirements that, one of those units has to be at 50% AMI. So the good news is the city will get a low-income unit out of this funding source. And then the remainder of those units can be restricted to 65% AMI. So that's the general application that would go in, and we would be able to ask for about $835,000 for the 4 units. But there's an opportunity to request a deeper targeting. And so if we were to take one of the units and target 35% AMI, then we could ask for that difference in funding from this source. So instead of the $835,000, we would be able to get up towards about $970,000. And then you would add on that the fees that the city receives for doing the work of submitting the application and monitoring it. They can ask for between $25,000 and $50,000. So that brings it up to just over $1 million. So what we're looking at is being able to have one unit in town that's deeply targeted. And so I talked to folks in the community who work in the other affordable housing communities that we have in town, just to get a sense of what's the demand for units that are very deeply targeted. And what I found out is, in fact, there's a high demand, and the demand comes from not only young, just entering into the workforce folks, but also seniors and people who have retired after having worked in St. Helena for all these years. So there is actually quite a market for it.
Thank you. Are there any initial council questions? Mr. Knudsen? No? Mr. Doring? Ms. Coberstein? I'll open it up to public comment. Yes?
Marisol Vargas with Our Town San Helena, and I'm also, sorry, I have a little bit of a call. I'm also with Bridge Housing and the manager of Hunts Gross Apartment. I really highly recommend that you guys help us with this. Part of the very low targeted unit, I am very involved with the amount of people that come, and we can even help because we are a Section 42 complex, and there's a lot of people that follow right below that target. So I think that is something that the city ought to think seriously of, the amount of people that follow in that no man's land that we could help with this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, any additional public comment? Seeing none, I will close the public comment, bring it back up to council. To me, this seems like a great next step on this project. Is there any other council discussion or thoughts at this point? Okay, so I would entertain a motion if...
I move that we approve the resolution authorizing the manager to develop and submit the grant application as set forth in the staff report.
I second.
And a roll call, please.
Councilmember Coberstein?
Yes.
Chateau?
Yes.
Knudsen?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Doring?
Yes.
Mayor Ellsworth?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for coming and presenting. And so with that, we will move on now to item 11.2. This is council requested presentation by Anthony Micheli of Conceptual Amphitheatre on city-owned Adams Street property. And for this, I will ask Mr. Micheli to present. And I believe there's a 15-minute presentation window.
I'm Anthony Micheli. Tom Faraday is with me. He was a co-owner of Valley Architects. Richard Grace, who's going to help us hopefully raise the funds. And Craig Bond had to leave. He's been the music director at St. Helena forever. In fact, he taught my kids in elementary school. They're now 34 years old. The only reason for the picture is to show you where we're thinking of putting the amphitheater. Pay no attention to anything else in that drawing for this time being. The amphitheater is kind of out of the area of where the city might put City Hall, the library, or any of your other projects. So, and it's in front of the walking path, which is that yellow line that goes to the river. The area of that amphitheater is about 100 feet by 100 feet. And there is a restroom facility to the west of it that we would fundraise to build for the city. And if nothing goes on the corner, I would like to create a park there. And I've already got contractors that'll build all the picnic tables and everything else there for the city. The amphitheater, well, I should say that Tom Faraday, Craig Bond, and myself met the other day. We were going to do an elaborate presentation. It takes a lot of time to do all that. And we thought, why do that if the city doesn't have an interest in us doing this for the citizens of St. Helena? And that's why we're here tonight, to ask, and I was surprised it just says to receive and file. I would like some decision made by the council that if we should move forward to design this thing, get other people involved, come back with a project before we actually fundraise, so to see that the project is acceptable to the city. And then we would fundraise based on that project, because there's lots of amphitheaters around the area that we want to go to. But like I said, we don't want to waste our time, I guess, is what I'm saying. But we want to do this for the community. You have, I think, a letter from the Napa Valley Opera Society that sent a letter proposing to endorse this because they would like to throw an opera here. Tom's going to say some comments because Craig Bond had to go to a meeting about what performances he'd like to do. I've talked to the St. Helena Community Band. They would like to do performances here. At the PUC, the drama director would like to do performances here. The library in the summer does a performance about every month during the summer. And that's how this started for me. I went there to the staff at the library and said, what do you need? And they told me they need someplace outside. And unfortunately, it's not too far from the library. I mean, we could move that next to the library if the city council thinks that's a better spot. But I know at the time being that whole corridor there is under consideration for a lot of other things. So that's why we've kind of kept on the outside. And this won't cost the city a dime. I mean, we'll raise the money, we will maintain it, we'll create a nonprofit, or if another nonprofit wants to come in and partner with us. I mean, there's lots of things we've got to do, and what we're kind of asking is to give us 3 years to raise the money and work out some lease agreements similar to maybe what you have with Little League. The fees to use this are going to be very minimal. I mean, we're not, the only people that would pay a lot of money is somebody wants to throw a concert there. And then obviously they will pay for that. But all the nonprofits in town, the library, everybody would get to use this. And I'm not trying to take away anything from Lyman Park for those concerts that they do there. Hopefully those will all stay at Lyman Park like they do today. To the east and west of the stage, which is nearest the walking path, suggestions have been made. People like to dance at concerts and do things. We could create a little area on each side there for that. But there is a drawing that I'm going to let Tom talk to because he drew it, and I think we can bring it up. I'm going to leave it to Tom first.
Okay, well, I think I don't have too much to add to what Anthony has said, but I wanted to do this little sketch to indicate that it's really a low-impact solution. It's simply a little mound with some seats on it. We're thinking about a capacity of like 150 people. It's something that there's interest in from lots of different groups in the city, from the community band to drama groups and singing groups and so on and so forth. So I think what we're asking for tonight is simply a commitment by the city to support this if it could be done. We're not asking for money. We're not asking for a location. This could be next to the library. It could be somewhere on the Adams Street property, but we don't know where. And we don't want to get into the weeds of the details and do a lot of design work if the city is not going to support it at all. If the city doesn't want it at all, we're not going to waste our time. That's it.
My name is Dick Grace, and the reason I came up here was the last time I saw you was to support Anthony, and I think his day celebrating the Italian heritage of the Napa Valley was a resounding success. And I like to think about projects that benefit our sense of community without an ulterior motive. And Anthony and I have talked about this project over a period of months right now, and I sense that his interest and his intent is to add to and foster the sense of community that makes St. Helena such a valuable place to live in. I think we're being besieged by a lot of commercial interests, and I don't think they should be necessarily addressed in benefit or in detriment to community serving events. And so I've become a fan of Anthony, who I first met 35 years ago, and his commitment to serve our community and to supply to our community things that reinforce and sustain that sense of community, which is very particular to St. Helena.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any?
That said, we'll answer any questions the council may have. And like I said, we just want a direction, or we'll do something else. I mean, but we'd like to do this for the community. I mean, it's for a lot of different groups. You can imagine who might come here to play, or somebody might want to throw a birthday party here. And even, Tom says, originally we had 250 people for this amphitheater. In talking to Craig Bond and other people, it was maybe too big. And maybe it's not. I mean, you guide us. I mean, we'll build whatever you tell us, that you think is the appropriate. And even a city council, you could have a meeting here if you think you need an audience of 250 people, or 200 if whatever facility you end up, you can only seat 100 in. And we'll have a lot of things to work out, but there's a lot of design things we've got to do, spend money for, and we just don't want to do that unless we know the city wants us to do this for them. I mean, it's up to the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any initial questions or thoughts from?
Thank you for the presentation, Anthony. As you may know, the city is exploring various options for this property, the library, potential city hall. Some of the options that I've seen include an amphitheater. And I've always been supportive of an amphitheater. And I guess I wanted to have your 2 cents on whether both can be accommodated. We go forward with our Nolan Tam study, and they come back. I'm supportive of an amphitheater. Does the option, or the options that we are currently studying, is that still consistent with what you want to do, or is there something I don't know that you want to keep it separate from that? Because I am supportive of an amphitheater because it's been in our plans, and I've never said, oh, well, why are we going to do that? I've always said, yes, that would be great. Talk to us about that.
Okay. I saw one of the plans, one of the options had a very small amphitheater next to the library.
Okay.
Okay, but you have a choice. Either you pay for it or we do. That's the bottom line. I mean, we're talking a few $1 million there. I don't know what kind of amphitheater you're proposing there, but...
Well, we don't know either, I don't think.
I mean, but I'm just saying that's basically the difference. If you want to build it, I'll go to it. And otherwise, we'll build it for you. I mean, that's the choice the city.
Oh, that's intriguing, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, that's the bottom line. But what I saw in the drawing, it wasn't a very big amphitheater, maybe 50 people.
Oh, okay.
I mean, what I saw that was presented here, I could be wrong.
Okay, and I don't know either.
Yeah, and so, but...
Okay. So you're flexible. You're open to partnerships, and
we're open to anything.
Okay.
Okay. We just want to do something for the community. I mean, Tom, I, and Dick, we're all retired. I mean, and I guess when you get to retirement age, you like to give back, and that's all we're trying to do.
Okay. And I appreciate that, and thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Any thoughts, Mr. Thomas?
No, I just my comment is that for me it's too early to commit to this idea until we decide what we're going to do with the Nolan Tam options, which is coming. So I love the idea of an amphitheater. I so appreciate you wanting to do that for the community. I'm open to still exploring that, but I don't want to decide that until we make our other big decision about what we're going to do with City Hall and the library and all of that in this space. Because as we know with the Nolan Tam, they didn't go deep into the design. These were just ideas for us. Mary and I think we both liked the amphitheater idea when we saw an example of that. I can speak for myself. It's a wonderful thing for the community. But I can't commit to it tonight. I won't commit to it tonight.
Well, I don't think we're in the position to commit tonight, but having you bring it forward and having us consider it as Ms. Chateau said, we're in this sort of phase where we're gathering and getting towards decisions, and that to me, something like this is a community benefit and should be weighed into those decisions. Mr. Knudsen, did you have a...
Yeah, I want to commend actually Mr. Micheli for your civic mindedness for the Italian festival, and that was unbelievable and quick work, and so I want to thank you for this. And I also want to thank you for the fact that you came back again and again and again in the small 4-minute public comment to talk about this, and I appreciate the fact that we've got an opportunity to actually get this in front of the council and in front of the community. I would also share with my council members that as we juggle these things the coming couple of months, we're making decisions this spring that I hope that this is in the mix, and I hope that you can also not be frustrated with the fact that this is a 2020, spring 2020 decisions that we're making, and this will be part of it. I think the ask is too early now, and it's not agendized that way anyway, but I think that you're in the mix, and you should be psyched about that. And Jesse's here, and he's going to write about it, or maybe he's already written about it. So you're in the mix, and this is a really huge, because it's hard to get the attention of this town. So you have our attention. So thank you for that. And the specific questions will be sizing and where and program aspects of it. I'm sure when they built the band shell in Lyman that, there was a question of programming in those days. Well, guess what? Things have changed and the bands no longer are in the band shell, right? So anyway, if this were to come to pass, which I'd be thrilled with, I think a real attention around programmatic aspects of it would be very important. Or you don't want it to be just dusty in 40 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay. This year, October 3rd is the start of the Italian Heritage Month. There'll be a party in Lyman Park on the 3rd of October and a ravioli dinner the following weekend.
I think
so
Mary,
just to announce to everyone.
I think Mary had an additional comment.
Yeah, I think it came through SHAPE that there is a desire for some cultural amenity in town. It came through in the Nolan Tam survey. I don't want to put the cart before the horse here. I think it's very important for us to make the decisions on the City Hall and the library, and then to determine how something like this might be accommodated, and maybe what could happen in the interim, which was recommended in the SHAPE report, was more of a community conversation about what the cultural aspects should be and where they should be. I have questions myself for the city attorney. How do we deal with something being built on our property? To me, there just seem to be things that we need to think about. And so at this point, I think it's worth pursuing. I don't think it's worth starting to draw plans at this point because we don't know exactly where it would go, and we don't quite know exactly what the whole community wants. And so I want to stick with our work program and recognize that this is something that could be part of the land planning that comes later once we have figured out what we're doing with the rest of the property.
Thank you. Any final comments?
No, that's just a good point. I just started to think about Scouts Hall and how if the nonprofit doesn't have the funds over time to pay for it, it then becomes this who does pay for it. and then you don't have somebody maintaining it. So I agree that that's something that we have to explore.
You know, it's
There's
interesting.
lots of complications.
You know, it's interesting, Ms. Koberstein, as well. I mean, we do have examples in the past, and Ms. Ueda, certainly the Crane Park ball fields, right? So they were privately built and fundraised for, and guess what? They're privately maintained, and they're on public property. So there are models that the town has. So we'll have to figure that out.
Yeah, I just think we got to stick with our work program, and it may be that we don't address all these questions till sometime in the future. And there could be other people who have other ideas about what we should be doing, and I think that it needs to be a community conversation. We need to understand going forward how it would be built, who would build it, who would manage it, how would it be operated. A lot of issues, and I don't think that now is the time to stop to address those, and maybe they're in the work plan for later. But I do think it's an idea that the community wants to discuss, and we should get to it at some point.
Okay. Well, Mr. Dorian? Oh, no, go ahead. So I'm going to open it for public comment. Thank you.
Mary Stevenson, Our Town, St. Helena. I want to commend these gentlemen for bringing this to the council, because I think it's an innovative idea that's coming from the community. And I realize that it has to come at the right time, but it is a good idea, and I hope that it stays within the parameters of this project. And I just need to point out once again that the SHAPE Committee and the Nolan TAM and every other study we've done on city-owned property in St. Helena has not included what the possibility for housing is, which is one of our biggest crises. And yet again, we're talking about going out and getting more studies and more consultants and more task force, and we're not talking about housing. Housing is one of your strategic goals. The interconnectedness of housing to downtown economics, to our schools, to the businesses is huge, and we're not talking about housing. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, please come up.
Hi, Nancy Durbin. I want to commend what the lady just said about housing. It's a critical need that somehow seems to be taking a backseat. I hope that will be somehow factored into what you do as you go forward. And also thank Mr. Micheli and the other fellows for bringing their ideas forward. I think what I'm not understanding here is there's 5.6 acres, and the plug-and-play features of Nolan TAM, I thought one of the ideas is you could kind of pick and cherry-pick it and decide what you want, and you've got all this room. If at least two of you know that you like the idea of an amphitheater, and it's even been at times part of a plan, my mind is thinking, why wouldn't you say, you know what, we do want an amphitheater. We don't know where on 5.6 acres it might go. We don't know exactly how it would be all unfold, but yes, pursue it. We want to see that happen. I think Crane Park is an outstanding example of what the community is capable of doing. And I'm not even the one offering, and I find myself frustrated that the community comes forward when we keep talking about all these, how are we going to fund this and how are we going to fund that, and all the extensive work that needs to be done to get things brought up to snuff around town. And you can't get a green light for a project that the community will embrace and want and could, Mary frequently says you want to see things that could stimulate the economy a little. You could have Shakespeare at the amphitheater. There's all kinds of things that could happen. This is something not just for the immediate community. It's something that could serve as a draw for people to come. A lot of people leave St. Helena to go to Napa to do stuff. Maybe we could get some in Napa to come to St. Helena to do stuff. So anyway, I just want to thank these guys. They're working really hard on it, and I think it's just an outstanding idea. And somehow I'd like to see this thing that's all right on the very front lines of 5.6 acres. I'm not sure why it's always right where it is. And lastly, preserving that little corner of Daly Park with beautiful mature oak trees. We've got an environmental crisis going on this planet. Can we save a few trees and some heritage vines and a walking path and make it really community friendly and not yield that precious little piece of land to big new buildings? I'm not really opposed to buildings, but I think we need to be really wise about where they go and how massive they are and what kind of money you might be taking from other areas of the city that need it more. So thanks for all your hard work, you guys.
Thank you.
Hi, excuse me. Hi, I'm John Sales, and I think there's a few of you here that may have remembered that we did a general plan back in 2000, starting in 2007, finishing up in 2009, and during the period that we did that plan, we did city meetings, a lot of community meetings regarding the use of Adams Street and what it could be and so forth. And I know you've hired consultants after that to advise you again on various options and so forth. Someone needs to step back and take another look at that, some of those charrettes that were done and what was requested at that time from the citizens. Amphitheatre was one of these things. It was part of that plan. Housing was a part of that plan. Another part of that plan was a heritage center, which was to tie closely to the library. All of these things are important to the city, and we keep going through this like a revolving squirrel cage of ideas and thoughts and plans and so forth. I think it's time that we settle down and move forward here. We've got a jewel of a property there. It's not something we should give away. It's not something we should give up, but it's something that can be usable by everybody in the city. And its property here is precious. Once it's gone, it's gone. So we need to think seriously about how that's used. And we do have major things here that we need to do. So take another look at that, review it, and you might find some good ideas there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Leslie Stanton, 1705 Hillview Place. Thank you, John. Thank you, all the gray hairs. We've been here a long time, and yeah, we've been involved in all these things like John was saying. I hope you listen to the community. We have spoken, and we've been to many meetings. Before you guys ever even heard of St. Helena, we were there, and we were speaking out. Thank you for making decisions, and I hope you finally come to one, and I hope you consider what the community wants.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comment? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment, bring it up to council. As we said, this is not a decision-making, not at that point. This is a receive and file, and that is the direction I think we've got from the council, with the idea that this is in the mix, and we'll be moving forward with decision-making in the spring.
You know, I think I would hope we would have a goal-setting session soon, and we would look at our calendar and see where we can reasonably fit things in and get them accomplished. We have a lot that we need to do, and I don't think we should commit that this is a decision we're going to make this spring. We need to make other decisions ahead of it. It's certainly in the group, but I'm not ready to commit as to when we're going to make this decision. We have a lot of other housing included.
No, I agree. Okay. So with that, and you have the direction on the receive and file, so we'll move to the next item, which is 11.3. This is 2020 City Council assignments to various city and Napa County committees, boards, and commissions, prepared by Cindy Shafopoulos, our city clerk.
Before you is the 2020 decisions for various city and county assignments. Each one of you has a copy. So before you is the chart that has the current 2019 appointments. What is not before you is the chart that has the Active Transportation, Board of Library Trustees, and Parks and Recreation Commission assignments. And so if we want to start with appointments to the local city committees, starting with the Active Transportation Sustainability Committee.
So I had a request from Mr. Doring, who had an interest in becoming the liaison on that committee. And to me, it seems consistent. He's on the NVTA with me. Currently, I'm the liaison. But he had suggested it was something he might like to do, and I would be supportive of that. Is that
consensus?
Okay.
I actually phrased it as a lifeline, but request is okay. Given your time commitments, Mr. Mayor. So, yeah, I'm happy to do it.
The Board of Library Trustees.
So we have City Council liaison as Councilmember Chateau. Is that something you're still happy with, and with consensus on the council?
Fine with me.
Okay, very good. Okay, then we'll move to Parks and Rec, and this is City Council liaison is Member Knudsen, and you're happy with that? And the support?
Mm-hmm.
Support, okay, very good. So then we'll move down to the city intergovernmental city council assignments. This is the Monrovia, the City St. Helena Unified School District Chamber, Napa Valley College, and myself and Mr. Doring are on that committee, or that assignment. Mr. Doring, are you happy there? I'm happy there still as well, if there's support. The St. Helena Sewer District, we are all on that.
I'd rather not be on that. No, I'm just kidding.
That's all council. The next is the ABAG, General Assembly, primary and alternate members.
So do we need to establish those that we currently do not have?
Currently, we have Vice Mayor Doring as the primary and Council Member Knudsen as the alternate.
Are you happy in those roles?
I'm fine with them. I wouldn't use the word happy, but I am fine with that role.
Okay. Support on that? Okay. So then let's move down to the association of, that's the executive board and the General Assembly. Are there two different?
Two different.
Okay.
So next would be Napa Valley Tourism Corporation.
Okay, and on this, we see Councilmember Chateau, and you're happy in that position with support from the council? Yes? Okay. The League of Cities, North Bay Division.
That is all of your responsibility.
Okay.
So the next would be Napa County City Selection Committee, and the mayor is the delegate, so the alternate right now is Vice Mayor Doring.
And I'm fine with that.
Fine with that, okay, and support from the council on that, okay. Napa County Flood Control and Water Conservation District, is that a similar?
So we need the mayor is the delegate, and we just need an alternate, and currently it is Vice Mayor Doring.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, we'll go down to Youth Opportunities Commission and seeing Vice Mayor Doring. This is something that you've been on for a while. Are you happy or fine?
Yeah, it's fine. It's not meeting as frequently as it did when I was in my early tenure, but I'm happy to continue serving on that committee.
Very good, thank you. Napa County League of Governments, NICLOG, that's all of us.
That's all of you.
Napa County Local Agency Formation Commission.
We do not have a delegate right now. We do not have there's not an opening right now for
Okay.
it. So the next would be Napa Valley Transportation, would be MVTA.
Okay, and on that is myself as the primary and Vice Mayor Doring as
Second
also as a primary,
yes.
And Ms. Chateau as the alternate. Everybody satisfied with that? Okay. Then we'll go to the Napa County Watershed Information Center and Conservancy. That's with myself as primary and alternate is Ms. Koberstein.
I'm fine. I have to say, in 3 years, I've never had to go to a meeting.
That's why you're fine.
I'm fine staying on that if there's support. Okay. Upper Valley Waste Management Authority, this is Ms. Koberstein as the primary, myself as the alternate.
Yeah, I'd like to stick with that. We're in the middle of renegotiating our agreement with UVDS, so.
Very good. Okay, and then finally, we have the Napa County Regional Climate Action Committee. That's with myself and Ms. Chateau as the delegates.
This is a newly formed committee.
That's one I would like to stay on, and I'm assuming the same as support with that. Good, everybody with that?
Yes.
Yep, okay, very good. So that is that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so then we move to item 11.4, which is the 2020 City Council meeting calendar. And this is Mr. Prestwich.
So over the last couple of years, the council has taken a recess once in July and once in December. In July has been the first meeting in July following adoption of the budget near the July 4th holiday, and then in December the second meeting. And so we're bringing this to you early in the year to receive feedback and provide some early clarity for staff vacation planning, council vacation planning, and the like.
Yes.
You're going to have to rearrange your schedule.
I'd like to speak to council vacation planning. The first year I was here, we canceled the second meeting in July. And then in the last year, we canceled the first. And thinking we were going to cancel the second meeting in July, I have scheduled a vacation out of the country and will not be here for the second meeting in July, the 28th. So I'd ask if the council would consider canceling that meeting in lieu of the first one.
How about both?
I think we have stuff we've got to get done. The idea of giving up two meetings to me seems like we might have stuff.
Seems aggressive, doesn't it? But was there a reason why? I mean, let's move it. But was there a reason why sort of the fiscal year's done, and now we take a break? Was that the why historically? Mr. Doring, do you know?
I think it revolves around staff and council vacations. It's a time where I don't think it's related to the budget necessarily. Just a good time to do that. I'm okay with Councilmember Koberstein's request. I typically in my brain don't think that far out in advance, frankly. If I get a vacation, once in a lifetime, I'm happy.
So there's support for moving it to the second. Is there any problem in the city to do something like that?
No.
Okay. Do we need a vote on that, or is that a
I think we have a direction.
direction? Okay. Is there any other?
Well, I think are we agreeing to cancel the second meeting in December, which is falling just a couple days before Christmas? That seems logical to me.
As we've done.
People will be out of town.
Yeah.
Okay. Any thoughts? Okay. And
you.
so you feel comfortable
Jesse,
with that?
are you okay with that? Do you want other cancellations? March, April?
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. And with that, we will adjourn the meeting. Oh, sorry, I have to open it for public comment. Seeing none, close that. And we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.